Hi guys, it's Jason here, back in Australia after a pretty epic trip to the States, and here's what's awaiting me. It's a 1975 JMP, right? It's a Super Lead. Good old four-holer, right? Metal panel. So it's a 1959 Super Lead circuit, as it says right on the back, Super Lead 100. Now this thing looks very clean from the outside. I have had a play through it, right? So we will listen to the amp as I've received it. Chucked a couple of guitars in front of it, right? A Tele and my 335, and just kind of gone through some basic kind of dialing in a few sounds, right? Just trying to get a feel for this thing before I open it up. My initial observations are it's got a lot of power, that's for sure. Sounds pretty good. I think the bright cap's been taken out, which is a very common kind of mod to tame these things, right? So there is a very kind of progressive with the treble channel. You can bring it up quite progressively, which tells me that, the bright cap's probably been taken out. So just in terms of the work that we're going to do on this thing, it's just come in for a service, right? And to basically ensure that it's completely stock. So if there are any mods in here, and as I said, I do suspect the bright cap's been taken out, I will be putting it back to standard 1959 Super Lead spec, and we're also going to put a post phase inverter master, which Pete wants on this amp, and I'm going to do that by using one of the speaker jacks here, right? So I'm not going to drill into this thing, there's no way I'm going to do that, but we'll sacrifice one of the speaker outputs here for the PPIMV. So stick around, I'll show you this amp on the bench, and we'll have a bit of a play through it once I finish my work on it. then guys, let's have a look at the insides of this thing. Let's have a quick scan through this thing. The board looks fairly original. Certainly these mustard caps are all original. These resistors are. Been a few that have been replaced over time, but that's not uncommon. I've already spotted a few mods. We'll come to those. Let me just continue looking through here. Looks like original bias caps here. I'll test all these. My theory on filter caps is if they test okay, I'll leave them alone. In a vintage amp, I don't replace them just for the sake of it. Again, this amp belongs to a guy who is in Melbourne, Australia, not far from me. And if the amp ever does need filter caps replaced, he knows where to find me. Okay, so did a little bit of work, this amp, but it's pretty original. This wiring here is not. I don't know what's going on here. Maybe someone replaced the lamp. That's what I suspect. Because that's all a bit kind of all over the place. Definitely been some work on this power wiring, but the power transformer does look original to me. It doesn't look like it's been replaced. I will flip this over and we'll have a look at the front of the amp, or the top of the amp as well. But to the mods that have happened, this is not original wiring, right? This brown wire is not. Is my guess. This is your normal Marshall kind of pink wiring. All this looks pretty good. Definitely original sockets all the way through. The screen grid resistors are original. We'll measure all of these. This is part of checking the amp over. Let's talk about the stuff that has been changed. There it is there. You always see this in these amps. That is a 5,000 picofarad bright cap. It's the original one. And it's been taken off. You can see the leg just floating in space here. That should be soldered onto this middle lug. The good thing about that is that they've left the cap there. Often I'll find an amp like this and this has been taken out and it's gone. And so you don't have the original part to use. So this is going to be going back in. Okay, we're going to make this amp as close to original as possible. The other thing, I'll take a photo of this so you can get a kind of a side-on look. The slope resistor here has had another resistor inserted in series with it. So let's see if we can get a reading on this. It said it had a, this resistor inserted in series, 56k. Okay, so normally you see a 33k slope resistor here in a Super Lead spec. So this is kind of like a super bass style slope resistor. I'll check the value of that. That cap there has also been replaced, and you'd see this as be 500 picofarad in a Super Lead or 250 picofarad in a super bass. So given that that slope resistor has been changed and this has been changed as well, I do have a suspicion that this is not 500, but we will check. This treble peaker cap here on the mixer, the 470k mixer resistors, has also been changed. That could have just been, maintenance, but we will check that. This cap here is not original, but it's a 0.1 microfarad presence cap. which, you know, for this amp is all good. So we're going to put that back. We're going to change all of this back to a Super Lead spec, and we will be putting a post-phase inverter master in, as already mentioned in the clip, and it'll be coming into these where these 220k bias splitter resistors are. Now, just with the camera in hand here, I'm just going to go through the restoration work. Very simple, really. You can see here I've restored the 33k slope resistor, and this was a 220 picofarad as suspected, right? So someone had kind of updated this tone stack to a super bass spec. This is a 470 picofarad, which is correct, and this is a 470 now as well, which is on the treble cap. And I've obviously soldered in and restored the bright cap on the treble channel. Now, one thing is really freaking obvious, which I didn't point out at the beginning, is this thing's had an extra tube drilled in it. There it is sitting there, and it explains why the wiring here is not stock or original. I suspect that, you know, somehow this was a gain stage in front, probably some kind of Jose mod, not necessarily with diodes, right, just with, you know, gain stage in front, and at some point in its life that hole has been plugged and the amp's been kind of restored. Well, half super lead, half super bass spec, I would say. So guys, just this JMP, right, it's got like a noticeable 100 hertz at idle hum, even with the, you know, with the volumes right down. There's no reason why it should be there like that. So I started poking around on these grounds here, thinking, oh, you know, I'll probably redo these grounds. They've probably never been, you know, this is the ground for the mains filter caps. This is the ground for the screen supply filter caps. And in these old amps, you know, they can kind of corrode and oxidize, and you don't get a great connection. But then I thought, look, I'll actually just have a look at what's going on at the power socket, right, where the mains come in. And check this out. This is the earth here, this black lead. Look at that. Can you see it? That's not soldered in properly. It's loose as. Right, so I'm obviously going to resolder that. Now, not only is that possibly responsible for the 100 hertz, because when I was poking around in here with the chopstick, the 100 hertz would go away. And then I'd poke around a bit more and it would come back. And I'm like, okay, definitely a bad ground. So my suspicion is this, which is pretty obvious to see now when you look at that moving around. But not only that, that's dangerous, right? That's the earth for the chassis. That comes loose, this chassis is floating. Not good. I've resoldered that ground on the mains, right? Power coming in, it's nice and solid. The amp's on. Here's my cab down here. There's almost no detectable hum. You can't hardly hear the amps on. I'm actually going to redo this ground, right? Further examination, the ground from the power is actually tapped into the ground lug for the cathode of that power tube, which is a no-no. Right, the ground for the mains power, should be on its own dedicated lug. So having solved the grounding issue, right, with the wiring, these are the original tubes here. I've just powered the amp back on again, and I am getting a 100 hertz hum, but only after these warm up. I'm just going to do some more testing, and I'm going to verify that these are the actual, problem. I think the grounding was a contributor, definitely, because we had hum when it first powered on before. Now it's only once the tubes are hot. And there it is there. It's not super bad, but it's more than I'm happy with. Something very suspect about this guy. In fact, when I move it around, it changes that 100 hertz. Stops. And I don't think it's a socket because I've moved these tubes around and there's always one bad one. So I've got this new quad of these JJ EL34s biased up, and she's nice and quiet, right? There's a noticeably lower hum at idle. In fact, it's hardly noticeable. And you notice right now, bear in mind that when I was doing the test before, this post phase inverter master volume was on 0, right? So what we were hearing coming through the speaker cab down here was definitely just, microphonic noise from the old power tubes. And now you can see this new set in here, she's dead quiet. Right, I'm going to kind of tidy up this wiring. It's a lot of, this is, not factory. It kind of looks like this thing's been rewired. I don't like the fact that a lot of this stuff is really close to the grid, which is, the grids are the inputs, right, to the power tube. So you don't want all of this AC mains really close to those grids. Not ideal. So clean that up a little bit, and then we're going to box this thing up back into its head cab, and we'll give it a bit of a tone test.